James Comey couldn't dodge this one.
Do you regret your role in this unprecedented misleading of a FISA court?
I don't regret my role. I regret that it
Why not?
happened.
Do you regret that you signed off on it?
Well, I regret that it happened.
And after Hawley kept pressing the former FBI director for answers on the FISA misuse under his watch, he managed to catch Comey contradicting himself more than one time. And today, we're breaking it all down. So if you enjoy content that cuts through the noise, hit that subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
Mr. Comey, we've heard a number of things this morning. We've heard you say a number of times that the OIG found problems in FISA applications across the board. But of course, it was only this FISA applications, these involving Carter Page that you signed off on, that drew an unprecedented rebuke from the FISA court, which I'm sure you remember. Let me just quote from that FISA court order. The frequency and seriousness of these errors in a case that, given its sensitive nature, had an unusually high level of review at both DOJ and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have called into question the reliability of the information proffered in other FBI applications. Do you remember that order from the court?
It came after I left, as I recall, but I remember reading about it, yes.
Do you regret your role in this unprecedented misleading of a FISA court?
I don't regret my role. I regret that it
Why not?
happened. I'm sorry?
Why don't you regret your role in the unprecedented misleading of a FISA court?
Well, I regret that the FBI supplied information to a FISA court that was inaccurate, incomplete, and should have been updated.
Do you regret that you signed off on it?
Well, I regret that it happened.
For context, this was the second hearing focused on the FBI's misuse of FISA after the Inspector General released a report detailing widespread abuse, which came right after another report that detailed significant misrepresentations and errors made in Crossfire Hurricane. One thing you'll notice throughout the exchange is that Comey knew he couldn't flat out deny something had gone wrong, mainly because the findings came from independent investigators. Instead, he settled on a different strategy. He would acknowledge mistakes were made, express regret that they happened, and then immediately distance himself from any responsibility. It became a pattern throughout the hearing, and whenever the questions got uncomfortable, he'd fall back on that exact routine.
Across the board, are you responsible for these certifications or not?
I don't believe you're accurately describing the statutory requirement for certification.
Are you responsible for these certifications or not? Answer my question.
I sign certifications on every FISA that the FBI sends over to the FISA court, including these.
Are you responsible for this misleading evidence given to the FISA court? Yes or no?
Yes, in the sense of command responsibility. No, in that I didn't have personal knowledge that would have led me to understand that we weren't supplying complete information.
Let's talk about what personal knowledge you have. When you certified the first Carter Page FISA application, you believed that Mr. Steele was working for the Democratic Party, didn't you?
I don't remember whether I knew the Democratic Party. I knew that he was working for political opponents of President Trump.
Now, let me remind you of your testimony under oath on December 7th, 2018, before the House Oversight Committee, in which you said, and I quote, Steele was retained by Republicans adverse to Mr. Trump during the primary season, and then his work was underwritten after that by Democrats opposed to Mr. Trump during the general election season, end quote.
Back then, Comey could get away with those kind of half answers. But now we have the Durham Annex that was declassified last year, which claims the FBI knew about Hillary Clinton's campaign plan to use the Steele dossier to distract from her email scandal. It also states that Brennan briefed Obama on the plan during a White House meeting attended by Joe Biden, James Comey, James Clapper, and other senior officials. Those are the exact kind of details the former FBI director and others from the Obama administration had every reason to keep buried. The document remained classified for years, despite Chairman Grassley's repeated efforts to obtain it, and it was only released after Kash Patel reportedly found it in the infamous burn bags. But that wasn't the only issue Comey struggled with, because he also tried to dodge questions about the credibility of Steele's sources.
Now, surely you recognized at the time that relying so heavily on a biased source would undermine public confidence in the FBI's activities, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Why wouldn't you? You told the same committee, the House Oversight Committee, December 7, 2018, and I quote, when you're the leader of a justice agency, that's you, the appearance of bias is as important as the existence of actual bias. You also said a reasonable appearance of bias can corrupt the American people's faith in your work as much as actual bias can. Do you stand by those remarks?
Very much so.
But you nevertheless allowed the Democratic Party to leverage the federal government's most invasive intelligence capabilities against President Trump, and you personally signed off on it. You also knew at the time that other officials in the Department of Justice had serious concerns. You knew of those concerns before you signed off on the FISA application, didn't you?
I don't think I knew before. I remember reading the footnote that attempted to inform the court of potential bias.
No, actually, the Inspector General found on page 139 of the report, and I quote, on October 12, 2016, Evans' concerns about Steele were briefed to Comey, end quote. And yet you signed off.
That's what getting caught red-handed looks like. I mean, not only were the sources Steele used for his dossier bogus, but CNN also reported that the FBI offered him up to $1 million to prove the explosive allegations about Donald Trump. But he never got the money because he refused to provide the names of any of his sources and didn't give the FBI anything that corroborated the claims to his explosive dossier. So, to be fair, Crossfire Hurricane itself wasn't open because of the Steele dossier alone, but it did help acquire the quarter-page FISA warrant, with the DOJ Inspector General later concluding that his reporting played a central and essential role in pushing that surveillance request over the line. So in other words, government resources were poured into pursuing allegations from an opposition research file that the person behind it refused to prove the very claims he was making, and the FBI couldn't independently verify. Make it make sense.
How are the American people to trust you or the FBI following abuses like this?
I disagree extensively with your predicate. I think the FBI is an organization that is honest, competent, independent, and also flawed because it's made up of human beings.
Well, I have to say, I'm not necessarily worried about the FBI as a whole. I'm worried about you. And I'm worried about what you certified to a court that led the FISA court to conclude that it had been misled repeatedly, and that due to the nature of those repeated misrepresentations, it could no longer trust what the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the agency you led, what it said in subsequent cases. That, I suggest to you, is an incredible dereliction of duty, indeed a betrayal of your responsibility as director of the FBI.
These are the kinds of fallacies that have kept people like Comey out of jail to this day, because proving malicious intent in court is an incredibly high bar. The defense is always the same. FBI agents, they're human, and people make mistakes, and, well, really, no investigation is perfect. But that completely misses the bigger picture. An entire presidency was overshadowed by allegations that Trump was somehow a Russian asset, forcing him to spend years defending himself against claims that ultimately fell apart and went nowhere. On top of that, the entire saga deepened political divisions in a way the country hadn't seen in decades. And despite all of it, many of the people who spearheaded that narrative walked away without consequences and are still celebrated as heroes by an entire political party.